Hello, everyone. Welcome into MLS Digest. This is 15 and 15, a weekly series where I go over the most recent match week of MLS action. And we're now a month into the season with week 4 just concluding this past weekend, where 12 out of the 15 games saw away teams picking up at least a draw. And in 7 of those, there were away victories, which is a crazy week of action considering just how big of a home advantage teams usually get in MLS. Week 4 is also the last week before this current international break, but have no fear because the MLS schedule persists anyways. It's just that many teams will be without probably their top 1 or 2 players, or at least some form of their starting lineup. So make sure to keep an eye out for that in the coming 2 match weeks. But anyways, we're here to recap week 4 action. Before we do, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what your thoughts were on match week 4's results. Saturday's opening game came out to a 2-2 draw between Red Bulls and Orlando. Orlando had to stay basically in New York from last week, week 3, when they lost to NYCFC 2-1. But they picked up a point in this one after matching New York's tactics in terms of the formation, which made it a far more open game than the Red Bulls usually have at home. They like to lock it down. And yeah, it was just a far more open game with a lot of transition moments, balls in behind. And Orlando now has shipped at least 2 goals in all 4 MLS matchups, but they picked up 4 points through week 4, which is probably not the worst, total through that time, considering how bad this defense has looked. Atuesta, who they've added in midfield with Cartagena out for the season, definitely offers far more offensively. He's gotten some assists already to start the season, but not the best start for Orlando's defense. Choupo-Moting for the Red Bulls got off the mark with his first goal, but it was a penalty. They still have Lewis Morgan out and some other attacking, depth pieces that they would probably like to have. But the pressing really has been on and off because of that front line being so old with their 2 DPs in Choupo-Moting and Forsberg. The Fire have now won back-to-back road games, with both of those being comeback wins, last week against Dallas, now against Toronto. All 3 goals were scored in the first half in this one. The Fire did make it 3-1 through Kuipers late in the second half, but it got ruled out due to a foul in the buildup, I believe. But regardless, a great showing again from the Fire, who just in the past handful of years at least have just been so poor on the road specifically. I think they've already matched their win total of on the road from last season through 3 road games now that they've played. And so it's a very impressive win considering all the injuries they also have in midfield. They had to sign one of their Fire 2 or youth team players to an actual first team contract because his appearances without doing so were used up in the past couple of weeks, because that's how bad this injury carousel is for the Fire. But for Toronto, they're looking, as offensively inept really as ever. Got the early goal through Kerr because Brynhildsen, their new signing, picked up a knock in warm-ups, and it's now just 1 point through 4 games for Toronto, looking like wooden spoon contenders, with Insigne still not even involved in the matchday squad. Austin went on the road and got a victory at LAFC, which is very hard for many MLS teams to do. It came through a very early goal on a set piece, a corner, a headed goal in by Biro. And then Austin basically pulled an LAFC on LAFC in terms of sitting in a low block, making everything in front of them, and making it very hard for LAFC to break down their defense. And under Nico Estevez, the new coach, we've seen this in his time at Dallas and now in Austin. His first priority, regardless of all these high-profile attacking signings they made and the money they've spent on that side of the field, the top priority has been fixing that defense, which has been basically one of the league's worst in the past couple of seasons. Even with 2 starting players on that back line out in this game specifically, limited LAFC's chances. Cengiz Under got his first start on that right wing after an appearance in the Champions Cup. But overall, LAFC also looked just a little bit flat and tired from that trip to Columbus in midweek. And it's another blip for them. That's back-to-back losses in MLS action for LAFC. They'll be looking to correct that next week. But Austin, it's 4 straight games now with 1-0 scorelines, 2 wins and 2 losses. The defense is a league best so far in terms of the metrics in Austin. So Estevez is completing his role in that sense, but the offense will have to start clicking sooner rather than later if it is to really contend in the West. After losing to Miami and 10 men in week 3, Charlotte came back home against Cincinnati, which was coming off a Champions Cup midweek elimination to Tigres. and got to home cooking once again. Second home match now of the MLS season and a second 2-0 result. Basically the same script or what have you from that first match against Atlanta at home. Both goals coming directly after halftime to take the lead. Miles Robinson suffered an injury early for this game for Cincinnati on that back line, which made Hadebe come in, and also Flores picking up a double yellow for that red card very late though. But regardless, Charlotte, obviously the much fresher team due to Cincinnati's schedule congestion, and just got out in transition for both goals with some balls in behind. And Cincinnati got punished very easily. Ajimang showing why he's been called up to that U.S. camp for this upcoming Nations League as well. But very cut and dry match here. Charlotte, one of the hardest teams to break down defensively, and especially at home, they seem to just pick it up a gear, especially from an attacking perspective, after two kind of iffy showings on the road. Montreal continued its awfully long road trip to start the season, going to DC, but picking up its first point finally in a scoreless draw, the only scoreless game of the entire weekend slate. And Montreal's road trip does continue next week as well at Nashville, but a good point for this team despite allowing almost 3 XG to DC United, including a Benteke goal that got disallowed, which would have made it 4 goals in 4 games. But this one stayed scoreless. DC United still undefeated to start the season with 3 draws and a win, but they've definitely had a very favorable schedule to start, all things considering. Played Toronto at home in week 1, a very late, probably goal of the season already, equalizer on the road to Chicago, and then a win against Kansas City at home, and then another home game, failing to win against Montreal on this road trip. So still very crucial points to start this season for DC United, which will definitely be in the thick of it going forward. NYCFC made it 2 wins in a row last week against Orlando and now against the lowly Revolution. The Revs did pick up, finally scored their first goal of the season in this game, but it was an own goal on a very non-dangerous cross, I would have to say, that Martins put in the back of his own net, a silly own goal. But from there, the Revs probably got ahead of themselves too much because they've had a okay enough defense this season actually, but with that lead they tried to open up a little bit more, commit more attackingly, and then got exposed on the counter basically for the equalizer for NYCFC, and then a fantastic overhead kick on a rebound to win it in the second half by Martinez. But for the Revs, 0.3 XG in this game created next to nothing, even though they got on the scoreboard. And Caleb Porter's seat just continues to get hotter and hotter with Campagna out and Urruti in this 9 role. Teams are just targeting Carles Hill, and this offense has just looked so toothless. As if advancing to the Champions Cup quarterfinals by beating Monterrey wasn't impressive enough, the Whitecaps continued their perfect form in MLS action with a 4th straight victory, the only team to remain perfect so far after the Union lost, which we'll get to. But winning on the road against Dallas 1-0, a goal on a well-worked corner routine, a short corner that was then crossed in, headed in by Blackman. And under Sorensen, this Whitecaps team just plays with so much desire. And this was also without Ryan Gauld, both of those results, even the Champions Cup. Jaden Nelson finally coming back after 2 or 3 games out with some sort of knock. So working his way back, but Gauld will be out for about a month still. So they're going to have to manage that in some way. But regardless, the Whitecaps are going to be hard to get points against regardless of whether they're on their day or not, because they play with a lot of effort. And of course, the possession has changed. They're one of the top teams in possession. They're going to dictate the game on their own terms no matter what. And as for Dallas, it's now 2 losses in a row at home. And even though they've been getting by, especially in the first 2 weeks, with some individual brilliance in terms of creating those goals, they have some of the least possession rate in the entire league and have to figure out how to grow into games and be a little bit more comfortable in games in that regard. Houston's abysmal start to the season continued. It's now 3 home losses in 3 home matches for the Dynamo. All goals coming in the first half here, including a first-minute goal completely set up by Diego Luna's amazing run and effort in the build-up play to provide Gonçalves with a great opportunity that he put away, and then a goal for himself right before halftime. And RSL is going to be missing him in the coming weeks because he's been essentially their entire offensive spark so far this season. He's set for USA duty in the upcoming international break for the Nations League. And as for Houston, their one goal, surprise, surprise, on a corner, or sorry, a set piece that Jack McGlynn sent in and Ponce got on the end of. In open play, though, for Houston, it's very, very difficult for them to find chances and hard to see anything fixing before the summer transfer window. St. Louis City with a second straight win and a fourth straight clean sheet. 4 clean sheets to start the season. This time against the Sounders. We're coming off a terrible exit in Champions Cup to Cruz Azul, where in that game they lost Paul Arriola for the season with an ACL injury. Jordan Morris picked up his own knock that'll probably going to keep him out for several weeks, if not a month or so. And Pedro de la Vega also dealing with another issue from a game or two back. And the depth has just hit a brick wall right now for the Sounders. They were also on obviously less rest coming into this game. And even without Berkey in net because of an injury picked up in training the day before, I believe, the backup goalkeeper for St. Louis City and this team, despite not having a lot of possession as well, once again, St. Louis still found a way, with the decider being a beautiful free kick by Lowen very early in this match. And although, like I said, the possession isn't where they want to be right now, they're still figuring that out, but they're definitely doing far more than just getting by in the meantime in the start of the Mellberg era. San Diego's second home match in its history played out to a second draw against the Crew, which was on short rest, coming out of its Champions Cup loss to LAFC on short rest, having to travel all the way to the West Coast again. Arston got it started early on, but then after halftime, Mikey Varas made some changes, and early on in the second half, those changes kind of paid dividends in terms of the tactics. There were some long balls in over the top that caught the Crew off guard. Obviously, they were more tired later on in the match, and then eventually Amundsen gets caught out and gets a red card, which makes the Crew have to play with 10 men for about half an hour, and it's a set piece goal for Valakari to finish in, and that's the first goal in San Diego's history at home. Now, at first it seemed like Nancy's tactics, despite the shorter rest for the Crew, would kind of provide a welcome to the league moment for this expansion side, but that second half changed everything, and credit to San Diego, still undefeated through 4 weeks, 8 points through the first 4 matches, and next week they get a Sunday night soccer showdown on the road at Austin. The Rapids continued their fantastic start to the season, still unbeaten, and now 2 straight road wins last week out against Austin, this time out against San Jose, and for San Jose, it's 2 straight home losses after losing last week as well to Minnesota. And the decider in this one, Calvin Harris, laid on in the second half with Zach Steffen, another fantastic performance in net. It's earned him yet another call-up to the U.S. national team for this international window. And for the Quakes, it's kind of the risk they take in terms of their tactical setup with this 3-5-2. It's all about how committed those kind of wingbacks want to get and what decisions they're making in terms of some of these transition moments, because that was kind of the case for the deciding goal, and some passing lanes were certainly open there throughout the match for the Rapids to hit, and they definitely have some great chance creators, including obviously Mihailovic, and that was the difference in this one, with yet again Hernan Lopez not actually playing despite returning from his suspension because I believe of an illness. So maybe not full strength again, not the best indication of this Quakes team, but regardless, far more is going right for Colorado to start the season. Nashville played a fantastic match to begin Sunday's 3-match slate, giving the Union its first drop points of the season, and it was a loss. And that's now 2 wins in a row for Nashville after beating Portland last week. The Union's high line kind of caught up to them, and some of the attacking chances went begging. There were chances on both ends, VAR decisions that certainly went in the favor of Nashville, maybe a penalty that should have been called for the Union before Nashville made it 3-1, and then eventually they did get a penalty very late that Sullivan missed. Sam Surge specifically was fantastic in this one, getting the first goal, but also just making it a pain for that back line with his physicality, with just the other little details, linking up with Mukhtar, who also scored a penalty kick in this game. But Kwasem, Yazbek, and Tagseth, that kind of trio in that lineup has definitely been a spark in the past couple of games that have sparked these wins, and it just seems like they're all playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulders and bring a level of commitment and energy that this Nashville midfield specifically has been missing for the past year or two. The Timbers and Galaxy played out to a 1-1 draw in Portland, with both number 9 scoring, Mora early on in the second half and then Ramirez equalizing late. But this game was marred by a non-call by the referee very late in the match that would have given Portland a penalty, a sliding challenge by Garces in the box on a Portland player that wasn't even reviewed either. And the Timbers have had some referee calls go against them for the most part to start this season. A bit of a harsh red card against the Whitecaps and some other penalties that they've given up, not to excuse those, but just have not been, fortunate in that aspect of the game. But regardless, the chances besides those two kind of half chances for the goals were very limited. These are two teams that are without their main chance creators. Their number 10s from last season. DaCosta is obviously filling in, or not filling in, but the new guy there. But it's going to take some time to get that chemistry going. And for the Galaxy, they were on short rest after beating Herediano to advance in Champions Cup. So overall, a fair result, but definitely a call that many people don't agree with for that late non-penalty. And finally, to close it all out on Sunday Night Soccer, it was Atlanta hosting Miami in a rematch of last year's first-round playoff series in which Atlanta got the upset, but Miami got its revenge here with a 2-1 victory, a late goal by Picault to seal it. But it all started with a Latte header goal 11 minutes in, but then soon after, a giveaway at the back by Sleesh allowed Messi to steal the ball and then chip Brad Guzan to equalize it. And then it was a lot of cat and mouse between them. Miami's defensive structure was pretty well organized. Atlanta still, despite all this attacking talent, still can't seem to figure it out. I think besides Latte, who has scored 3 of the team's 4 goals so far this season, and note, just only 4 goals through 4 games. I think besides that, obviously, Almiron, I think, has been the best player out of the bunch in terms of him dictating the attacking tempo. And on the other end, it seems like Moranchuk still is just so indecisive in crucial moments, especially when they get in transition. And Sabalojanidze has not had the best start to the season. He collided in the paths of Latte when it was 1-1, still in the second half, when Latte would have had a great chance in on goal. And this Atlanta attack, unfortunately, is just still disjointed to start this season. And it's going to take some time, I guess, for us to see, hopefully, its true potential, because this is just too good of talent together to fail in terms of, being a consistent threat and especially defending this fortress at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Be sure to check out the Week 5 preview video dropping later this week. It'll be a bit of a tricky slate to navigate with all the players missing due to the international break, but I'll be sure to keep you updated and provide you with everything you need to know with who's in and what to expect from these teams with rotated lineups for Week 5 when that drops. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next video.